Now, a lot of you that have your own land and you're thinking about creating bedding areas for deer, and how are you going to do that? There are a lot of you that are scouting new parcels. It's a great time. My favorite time of the year to scout is directly at the end of the hunting season and when you're done hunting, because then your sign that you find and what the bucks and does and deer are leaving in general are reflective of hunting season time. Big difference from when you find sign in late February, March, or April, especially shed season. You know, looking out in the shed rallies and going out and shed hunting in March. Great time, you know, early March, mid-March is a great time to shed hunt. But the deer that are there at that time and where you might find a shed might be a long ways, especially when it comes to bucks, from where they will be bedding in the fall. So it's a great time to scout, it's a great time to plan, and pretty soon it's going to be a great time to create. We're firing up the chainsaws. We'll be cutting bedding areas again in January like we did last year, and we're going to show you why and where, and show you some diagrams of why that's happening in certain places, and it's really critical. I'll talk about that focus. And when you're searching and when you're creating a bedding area, when you're searching for creating, there's a general rule that you can really look at, and of course, number 3 here, diversity. You know, the more diversity, the better. The 4 cover types. 4 cover types for bedding is something I published and wrote about in Quality Whitetails back in the QDMA at least 9-10 years ago. It's been quite a few years now. And I talked about the 1 class of bedding that you need, or you look for anyways, are briars, weeds, grasses. Number 2, shrubs. Number 3, conifers. Could be red cedar, pine, spruce. And then number 4, hardwood regeneration. If you find those 4 taking place in one spot, like an early successional growth, upland, field, then you're going to find a lot of wildlife, let alone whitetails. And it's interesting because, you know, this isn't the number 1 rule, but it could be. The more slanted towards diverse whitetail holdings that you have, the more slanted you're going to be towards wildlife in general, including small games, birds, butterflies, bees, pheasants, quail, rabbits, grouse, whatever it might be that you want. The more you hit whitetail with the bullseye in the map, the more you're going to find really good wildlife populations in the area you're hunting or trying to create. So number 3 there, diversity. Those 4 cover types. If you can get 2 or 3 to happen in one spot, as many of those 4, then you're going to find great bedding areas for whitetails. And so that's something you can search for on public land. Look for areas of conifer, shrubs. You're looking for that mixture of habitats. Not all hardwoods, it's not all shrubs, it's not all conifers, it's not all grass fields. It's that combination that brings all 4 of those together, and that's where you're going to find the most amount of wildlife, let alone whitetails. Number 2, deer are creatures of edge. What does edge mean? That means that there's a transition, a hard transition from one type of habitat to another. Deer travel on edges, so it helps you set up stand locations. Those are funnels where deer move between one habitat and another. They follow those lines. Even a hard edge would be a stream. So imagine a stream going through a river bottom. That's a hard edge where there might be ag fields out to the sides or pasture land, and then you have this creek or river system with a little bit of cover, and those deer will follow that edge. It's a great definition of movement. It helps you find areas to hunt. If you can find edge leading to diversity or coming from diversity, then you have areas for stand locations. You might have that edge leading to food sources, but deer are creatures of edge and diversity, especially those 4 types that I talk about. But really, number 1, how can you identify all this? Well, for one, you can look at an aerial photo. You know, we use HuntWise, and what's cool about HuntWise is it gives you about 5 different topo maps to choose from and 6 different aerial photos. What's great about that is you can choose from older or newer aerial photos with topo lines on or not. And what it allows you to see is the different and change in patterns of the treetops or habitat that you're looking at. If it's all a dark green smear, you might find cedars up in northern Michigan, northern Wisconsin, Minnesota. You might find red cedar thickets more in Missouri, southern Illinois. If you find those big open tops with a little bit of color starting showing, you might find big open top hardwoods. If you find small tops, you might find younger growth. The bottom line is you don't want to see the same top in the area you're looking, even on public land. By finding areas with a lot of broken, a lot of those hard edges coming through there mixed with different types of tops, sizes of tops, colors of tops, then you're going to find diversity, you're going to find edge. You can find that just by looking at an aerial photo. But bottom line, when you get on the ground and you find diversity, you're going to have uneven canopy. And this is really important because if this is your ground level right here, you have big hardwood tops up here, you have brushy growth, briars, weeds here. You have conifer plantings a little bit lower. And then you have that hardwood regeneration. What you'll find is that canopy is uneven going down to bare soil. So it's an uneven top. When you find areas out in the woods, you're just walking, you're just hiking. When you're not in an area that's all hardwoods, when you're not in an area that's all shrubs, say a tag alder swamp up north, you find those tag alder swamps, and then you find that island. You find that island with a little conifer. Then you find that island mixed with a little bit of hardwood. Now you find, you can see that uneven canopy. Think about that when you're creating cuttings in the woods. You're not trying to take 20 acres out of 40 and level it. You're trying to take pockets within that 40 acres of hardwoods and cut it. You might add conifers to those pockets. You might allow early successional growth to come in, briars, regeneration, hardwood regeneration. The bottom line is an uneven canopy means diversity. And I want you to think of it that way as you're looking at the side of a woods. You're looking at an area. We passed a valley this morning, went to breakfast, and we're looking up into a valley, and my friend Colin said, boy, that looks like a good spot. That looks like a really good valley. And you looked up in there, and it had some early successional growth of briars, grasses, weeds, had some conifer and red cedar mixed in, and then it went up to hardwoods, and you could see some benches back in there where it leveled off. And it's cool right now because we have 6-8 inches of snow on the ground. You can see all this diversity. So really cool. And you can see, you look back in that valley, it looked broken. There were hills, and there's a lot of diversity with habitat. And there's certainly, when you're looking at it, it was very jagged looking at that canopy from up and down and going back and forth. It's a really simple sign, whether you're looking at, we talk about private land all the time, and I don't like it. The name of the company, the name of the business, Whitetail Habitat Solutions. I help people design their habitat. It's interesting. I'd say 2/3 of our videos are related to hunting strategy and how to build that hunt for the next year. And a lot of people make that assumption, Whitetail Habitat Solutions, we're not going to do much with the habitat on public land. It's private land related, but really, you're still searching for those same things on public land. It's the same concept. Diversity that you can create, and often public land's a lot less stress to hunt. You need to go out and hunt. A lot of boot time, maybe some aerial photo time, but on private land, you can build it, and it takes a lot of time, effort, resources, of money and time to create. Where on public land, you just find it, go out and enjoy it, and it's more walking and boot time, but it's the same exact concept. Whether you're creating it on private land or you're finding it on public land, it's all the same. I want you to think back to some of your favorite whitetail hotspots, some of your favorite wildlife hotspots, and think about what that looked like. Some of mine growing up are those upland mixes of gray dogwood, little pockets of hardwoods, a few white pines scattered here and there, a lot of briars and grasses. And they were not only the spots that that time in the 80s, we literally climbed up a tree, stood on a branch, and hunted. That's how I missed my first deer. First deer encounter I missed with a bow was just standing on a branch. It came into scrapes. I didn't even understand what scrapes are. Someone at the archery shop, it was Waterford Hill Archery on Dixie Highway by Fremby's back in the day in the 80s. They're the ones that told me what a scrape looked like. And I missed that. They were also the spots that we not only whitetail hunted, but we looked for rabbits in too. And so we grew up, again, rabbit hunting. I talk about that in January, we're making rabbit palaces around here. Rabbitat is what you call it, habitat. But we're putting pallets out, putting brush over them so rabbits actually have a place to hide. And again, it's all about that diversity. That was back when we were hunting more public land. And it's amazing how I think back to some of those spots where we saw the best deer herds back in the day. They featured that level of diversity that I create on private land today and still search for on public land. Now, what is that? 36 years later. That's my 36th whitetail season. And I invite you to think about, in your history, in your memories, your memory banks, take a trip down memory lane to some of your best and favorite whitetail and wildlife hotspots. And not only will you find there's a lot of diversity, there's a lot of canopy change, and you have that overall uneven canopy, but you'll also realize that those hotspots for whitetails were also hotspots for wildlife in general. And that's what this channel is about. Again, we talk about whitetails all the time just because if you hit whitetails in the bullseye, and that's what you aim for, you're going to encompass a lot of wildlife species around. And that's what I do here. We want pheasants, we want rabbits, we want birds, butterflies, bees. We want to enjoy those around the house, hear the sights and sounds of all wildlife. And if you look for that uneven canopy, you're going to find diversity, edge, and that's where it's at. And that's what you want to create or find when it comes to finding whitetails or wildlife in general. And I hope you can find it or create it this fall. And if you're searching, again, we have a lot of public land videos that you can look for. And if you're trying to create habitat, make sure you follow our monthly chore list to keep track of what we're doing on a consistent basis every month to find whitetails and wildlife on our property here at home in our lease in Wisconsin, home in Minnesota. But we have lots of habitat improvement videos on here. It's all designed to make sure you're on the right track, you're saving time and money, and most of all, look for that uneven canopy and that diversity that you need for all types of whitetails and wildlife right now during the off season, and you're planning and in through the hunting season next season. Folks, I want to make sure you check out my web class video series, whether it's how to design your food plot program or how to design your property in general. And we have a new one coming out that'll be how to hunt the rut. But these bucks back here are a testament. Some of these bucks go back to 93. They're even in different states. I urge you to check out those web classes so that you can help yourself, help your land, help your hunt. The link is in the description. And also for those that have tried them out, I encourage you to offer some feedback in the comments below. Thank you.